There's a quiet moment in plant care that almost no one notices. Nothing looks wrong. The leaves are still there. The color seems fine. The plant is alive, but something feels off. Days pass, then weeks. And your plant doesn't grow. Not even a little. No. New leaves pushing out. No visible change. No sign of progress. It just stays the same. And at first, you ignore it, because at least it's not dying, right? But slowly, that thought starts to change. You begin to wonder, why isn't it growing? You gave it water, you placed it in sunlight, you even checked on it more than usual. So what's missing? Most people, at this point, start doing more. More water, more sunlight, maybe fertilizer. They move the plant from one spot to another, closer to the window, then farther away. They rotate it, they change the soil, they even talk to it sometimes. Still, nothing happens. And this is where frustration begins, because it doesn't make sense. A dying plant is easy to understand, but a plant that refuses to grow, that's confusing, and confusion leads to mistakes. You start overcorrecting, watering again, just in case, adding more nutrients, hoping something changes. But what if the problem isn't what you're adding? What if the problem is something you've never even thought about? Because the truth is, when a plant stops growing, the reason is often not visible. It's not on the leaves, it's not in the color, it's hidden, below the surface. Inside the pot, in a place most people never check. The roots. Roots are the foundation of everything. They decide how much water the plant absorbs. How many nutrients it takes in. How strong it grows. But here's the part that surprises most people. Roots don't grow endlessly without limits. They need space, and when that space disappears, everything changes. At the beginning, when you first plant something, there's plenty of room. The soil is loose. The roots spread easily. Growth is fast. You might even notice new leaves appearing quickly. It feels like everything is working perfectly. But over time, those same roots keep expanding. They grow longer, thicker, stronger, until one day, they reach the edges of the pot, and then they have nowhere left to go. This is the moment everything starts to slow down. But you don't notice it immediately, because it happens quietly, instead of growing outward. The roots start circling. They wrap around the inside of the pot. They twist around each other, layer over layer, like a tangled web with no escape. And the more they grow, the tighter it becomes. Imagine being in a room that slowly shrinks over time. At first, it's comfortable. Then it becomes a little tight, then uncomfortable, and eventually, there's no space left to move. That's exactly what your plant experiences. And when roots lose space, they lose function. They can't absorb water properly. They can't take in nutrients efficiently. And most importantly, they can't expand, so the plant does the only thing it can do. It stops growing. Because it's weak, not because it's unhealthy, but because it's trapped. And this condition has a name, root-bound. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most overlooked problems in plant care, because from the outside, everything still looks fine. The leaves may stay green, the plant might even look stable, but inside, it's struggling, slowly, silently, and this is where most people get it wrong. They see slow growth, and assume the plant needs more care, more water, more feeding, more attention. But that only makes things worse, because the real problem was never a lack of care, it was a lack of space, and no amount of water, no amount of sunlight can fix that. In fact, sometimes it creates new problems. Overwatering becomes more likely. Because compacted roots don't drain properly. Nutrient buildup can happen because the soil isn't being used efficiently. Stress increases, and over time, the plant becomes weaker, more vulnerable, more sensitive to small changes, and eventually, it may start showing visible signs: leaves turning yellow, edges drying out, growth becoming uneven. But by then, the problem has been there for a long time. It didn't start when the leaves changed. It started much earlier, when the roots ran out of space. The scary part is, you can't always tell just by looking at the surface, because the real story is hidden underground. But there are clues, small ones, easy to miss. If your plant dries out very quickly after watering, It could mean the roots have taken over most of the soil. If water seems to run straight through the pot, without being absorbed, that's another sign. If you see roots coming out from the drainage holes, that's a clear warning. And if your plant hasn't grown in weeks, despite proper care, that's the biggest sign of all. At this point, there's only one way to know for sure. You have to look. Gently take the plant out of its pot, slowly, carefully, and observe the root structure. What you might see can be surprising. Instead of loose soil, you may find a tight mass of roots, circling, wrapping, holding the shape of the pot. Sometimes, there's barely any soil left visible, just roots everywhere, and that's when it becomes clear. Your plant wasn't lazy. It wasn't slow. It was stuck, completely stuck. But the good news is, this is one of the easiest problems to fix, and the solution doesn't require anything complicated. You don't need expensive products, you don't need special tools. You just need to give the plant what it lost. Start by choosing a slightly larger pot. Not too big. Just enough to allow new growth. If the jump is too large, the soil may stay wet for too long, so balance is important. Then, gently loosen the roots. Not aggressively, just enough to break the tight circular pattern. This helps the plant grow outward again. Add fresh, well-draining soil. Place the plant in its new pot and fill the gaps. Water it lightly and let it settle. That's it. No magic, no complicated steps, just a simple change that can completely transform your plant. Because once the roots have space again, everything else follows. Water absorption improves, nutrient uptake increases, new growth begins, and slowly, you start to see life again. New leaves appear, stronger, healthier, more vibrant. And this time, it doesn't stop, because the limitation is gone. And this is something most people never realize. Growth doesn't always need more effort. Sometimes, it just needs freedom. So if you have a plant that hasn't changed in weeks, if it feels like nothing is working, if you've tried everything, take a step back. Don't look at the leaves. Don't focus on the surface. Look deeper, because the real problem might be hidden in a place you've never checked before. And once you find it, you'll understand something important. Your plant was never failing. It was just waiting for space, waiting for a chance to grow again.